In this video, I will show you how I sketched a nigiri, which is a type of sushi. And I did this in my sketchbook. It's a Sakura sketchbook, and I like it because the paper is not too white. It's just a nice cream color. I start out by sketching in very thinly with my graphite pencil. This is a mechanical pencil which always can have a nice sharp tip to it. So that's why I like to use it. And as you can see, I keep it very loose, very rough. It's just to get those first primary shapes in there, and then later on we will fine-tune them. But it just gives the bigger gist of it all. After getting those first lines in, I switched to my Platinum Preppy pen, which is a fountain pen. It's a budget pen, so it's nothing too fancy, but it gets the job done. And I go over the edges here to first get the bigger gist. If we slow down to actual speed, you see that I'm taking my time, but that I'm also putting in these lines quite loosely. I don't go for perfect lines. I keep them sketchy, because that also is what brings life to a drawing, to a sketch, I feel. You know, we can always render everything perfectly, but I do like to have a bit of that painterly or sketchy touch to it. So take your time and make the size of strokes and just enjoy the process. At this stage, I'm also not concerned about any little mistakes I might make, because this is just the initial layer. I'm just finding those bigger shapes, putting them into place, and get the definition of the piece as a whole. As you can see, we keep it very sketchy, which could be interpreted as a bad word, but let's say it in the good way. We keep it nice and loose. Now here I am putting in some rounder lines for the caviar which sits on top, or plain English fish eggs. And I'm making some indications of where I want to have some highlights. So that's where I draw individual circles. Now I'm adding some shadow effect just by putting some very simple marks. And if I want those darker, I go over them again at a later time. Again, as you see, I'm going all over the place, adding some textures here and there, keeping it loose, and then you can already see how it develops, and it's a lot less static. And by working loosely like this, you also see that small mistakes, they don't matter, because your viewers, they will not notice them, because there's so much going on there, even if it's just these little scribbles. Here we go on to some cast shadow, which is one of the darkest spots in the picture. So here you see that I put those stripes very close to one another to get a more dense feel to it. As for the caviar, I'm just making it dark, finding my way just with straight hatching. And later on, while I was doing this, I found out, hey, I could also make circular motions to bring them more to life. While I'm making these dark spots here, I also keep some lighter areas in there, the highlights, because those fish eggs, they're shiny, and they're a little bit wet, right? Here you see what I mean with making those circular motions. I enjoy those because it shapes the form what you're playing with. So always try to sketch with a variety of shapes, forms, but also hatchings. It adds life to your piece, makes it less dull. Let's speed it up again, because we've got quite some filling ahead. As you see, here and there, I just leave some white spots. And actually the ink I'm using is carbon ink, which is not water soluble. That's why I can go over with some watercolor. In this case I use a very thin down gouache. And I'm first putting in some yellows, because the fish on top, it's slightly, I think they burnt it with some gas lighter and make it a bit more crispy. And this color matches well. Again, I'm not too stressed as it's a sketch, it's for fun. I'm basically just going over the places where I already put some line work. But I still feel that those eggs need some more work. So later on you will see that I will also add some black over those eggs to make them pop more. And then you'll get more depth in the piece as well. I'm not going over every part in the black side, just slightly to give those indications. And wherever there are more intense shadows, I just add a light layer. This is a touch of green. And I don't work too wet. I don't put a lot of paint on the brush. I keep it as a very light, sketchy wash. To add more to the painterly feel, I'm just splattering around some of those yellow colors to make it more vibrant, make it more popping, and I think it brings a little bit of extra life to the piece. Thank you very much for watching. Should you have any questions, feel free to ask them, and a like and subscribe of course would be highly appreciated. Happy painting!